General Hospital will reveal Kristina Corinthos Davis fled Port Charles in a desperate attempt to escape the pursuit of the Port Charles Police Department, PCPD, after her horrifying secret began to be exposed. She had been hiding for days, using a false name and taking refuge in a small motel on the outskirts of town, preparing for a plan to escape even further. Meanwhile, her family fell into a state of extreme panic when they couldn't contact her. During her time on the run, Kristina sought out a strange man regardless of the consequences in order to get pregnant, despite being gay and not attracted to men. This desperate act stemmed from the deep pain she felt after losing the baby she had been carrying as a surrogate for Molly and TJ. Kristina had fallen into a severe depression after losing the baby, and in her desperation, she believed that a new child could fill the void in her heart. It all began when Kristina, in a fit of rage and thirst for revenge, accidentally cut the brake lines of Rick Lansing's car instead of Ava Jerome's, the person she blamed for the death of the unborn child she was carrying as a surrogate for Molly and TJ. This reckless action nearly cost Rick and Elizabeth their lives in a horrific accident. The feud between Kristina and Ava originated from a tragic incident. When Kristina was serving as a surrogate for Molly and TJ, she confronted Ava in her hotel room. The confrontation led to disastrous consequences when Kristina fell from a fifth-floor window into the swimming pool of the Metro Court Hotel. Although Kristina survived thanks to landing in the pool, the baby wasn't so lucky. When she woke up in the hospital, Kristina was devastated to learn that the baby girl had not survived. Kristina had named the baby Adela, after her deceased grandmother, Sonny's mother. This loss plunged Kristina into a state of despair and deep hatred toward Ava, whom she held responsible for her daughter's death. Although Ava had to stand trial, she ultimately avoided prison time, which only fueled Kristina's resentment. Lucky Spencer, the only person who knew about Kristina's crime on the night of the accident, tried to convince her to confess or at least tell her mother, Alexis Davis. But Kristina, with her self-important nature and always thinking she could escape any consequences, manipulated Lucky and persuaded him to keep quiet. The situation became more serious when Ava discovered surveillance footage from the parking lot, capturing Kristina tampering with Rick's car. Ava immediately used this information to blackmail Alexis, demanding double the money in exchange for her silence. At the same time, Dante Falconeri also began investigating Rick's accident, causing Kristina to panic. As the pressure mounted and the investigation closed in, Kristina decided to flee. She disappeared without a trace, causing Sonny, who was struggling with severe atrial fibrillation, to worry even more. Despite his health condition, Sonny mobilized all his resources to find his daughter, determined to protect her at any cost. Sonny's health had become serious in recent times. A recent incident had terrified Kristina when she witnessed Ava standing by watching Sonny during a heart attack without helping, not even handing him his medication bottle. This further increased Kristina's hatred toward Ava, making her vow to avenge the deaths of Adela and Morgan, while protecting Sonny and Avery from Ava. In the end, it was Lucky who found Kristina and brought her back to Port Charles. With patience and persuasion, he made her realize that running away would only make the situation worse and convinced her to return to face the consequences of her actions. Upon her return, Kristina had no choice but to confess her sins. Diane Miller proposed a bold solution to Alexis: placing Kristina in a mental health facility might be the only way to keep her out of prison. Meanwhile, the relationship between Kristina and Molly was on the verge of collapse, as Molly, an assistant district attorney, might demand that Kristina face maximum punishment for nearly killing her father. Sonny, though heartbroken by his daughter's actions and concerned about his health, remained determined to protect Kristina. He tried everything to save his daughter, from hiring the best lawyers to using his influence to reduce Kristina's charges. He even hid his health condition from Kristina, fearing that his impulsive daughter might overreact and make the situation worse. Now, having returned to Port Charles, Kristina must face the harsh truth. There are no shortcuts to escape the consequences of poor decisions, and she must learn to take responsibility for her actions if she wants a chance to make amends and heal the relationships that have been damaged. Sonny, though heartbroken by his daughter's actions and concerned about his health, remained determined to protect Kristina at all costs. He was in the process of withdrawing from the underworld he had dominated in Port Charles for many years, a decision accelerated by his deteriorating health. Recurring heart attacks and severe atrial fibrillation had prompted doctors to warn that if Sonny didn't reduce stress and change his lifestyle, he might not have much time left. However, Sonny kept his health condition secret from Kristina, fearing that his impulsive daughter might overreact and make the situation worse. Only Carly, Jason, and Diane knew about his true condition. Sonny had to take multiple medications daily, and sometimes had to leave important meetings due to sudden chest pains. Each time, he would make excuses about emergency calls or business matters that needed attention. When he learned that Kristina had fled, Sonny didn't hesitate to mobilize all his resources to find his daughter. He sent Jason, his most loyal lieutenant, to lead the search, while reaching out to contacts in neighboring cities. Sonny even contacted old rivals, proposing temporary truces to focus on finding Kristina. With each passing hour without news of his daughter, Sonny's already weakened heart grew heavier. When Lucky finally found Kristina and brought her back, Sonny had to contain his emotions. On one hand, he was immensely relieved to see his daughter safe. On the other, he was pained to learn about her reckless actions and the consequences she faced. But Sonny Corinthos was not one to give up easily, especially when it came to his children. He hired a team of top lawyers, led by Diane Miller, to build a defense strategy for Kristina. He also reached out to high-ranking officials in the justice system, people he had helped or influenced, seeking leniency for his daughter. Sonny even considered more extreme measures, such as making evidence disappear or pressuring witnesses, though Jason advised him against going too far. In private meetings with Diane, Sonny expressed deep concern not only about Kristina's future but also about her mental state. He recognized that his daughter had changed after losing the baby she had carried as a surrogate, becoming more bitter and resentful. Sonny blamed himself for not recognizing the warning signs earlier, and now he was determined not only to help Kristina avoid prison but also to help her heal emotionally. Now, back in Port Charles, Kristina had to face the harsh truth. There were no shortcuts to escape the consequences of poor decisions, and she needed to learn to take responsibility for her actions if she wanted a chance to make amends and heal damaged relationships. She had to endure several tense interrogations with the police, with Dante trying to maintain professionalism despite facing his own sister. Rick, after learning the truth, demanded that Kristina be prosecuted to the fullest extent, while Elizabeth, always kind-hearted, suggested leniency if Kristina was truly remorseful and sought help. However, the news of Kristina's pregnancy completely changed the dynamics of the battle. When the pregnancy test results were confirmed, Alexis and Diane quickly adjusted their legal strategy. They argued that imprisoning a pregnant woman would not only endanger the mother's health but also threaten the life of an innocent child. Instead, they proposed that Kristina should be placed under house arrest and attend mandatory psychological counseling. This news shocked the entire family. Sonny, though initially skeptical, quickly accepted the reality and even felt a glimmer of hope that the upcoming grandchild might be what Kristina needed to change her life. Molly, though still angry with Kristina, gradually softened when thinking about the baby on the way. Sam stood by her sister, helping her prepare for the upcoming journey into motherhood. Ava, who once held the upper hand with the surveillance footage, now found herself on the losing end. She could no longer blackmail Alexis when public opinion was shifting toward Kristina, an expectant mother trying to make amends. Moreover, making the footage public could now make Ava appear cruel for targeting a pregnant woman, something even her allies couldn't defend. Kristina, though initially viewing the pregnancy merely as a way to avoid punishment, gradually developed genuine feelings for the child she was carrying. She began attending prenatal classes, reading books on parenting, and even started rethinking her life to become a good mother. This child, conceived in desperate circumstances, had become a beacon of hope in the darkness Kristina had created for herself. However, not everyone believed in this sudden change. Dante, with his keen police instincts, remained suspicious about the timing of the pregnancy. Rick, still bitter about the accident, demanded DNA testing to identify the child's father, hoping to use this information to weaken Kristina's position. And Molly, though softened, still couldn't fully forgive her sister for nearly killing her father. Meanwhile, Sonny continued to battle his heart condition in silence, determined to live long enough to see his grandchild born. He had begun reorganizing his business affairs, preparing for a smooth transfer of power if the worst should happen. He had also written a letter to Kristina and his unborn grandchild, leaving it in a safe with instructions that it only be opened when he was gone. The legal battle continued, but with the emergence of a new life, the cards had been reshuffled. Kristina, who had once fled from the consequences of her actions, now faced the greatest responsibility of her life, becoming a mother. And while she prepared for this new journey, she also had to find ways to heal damaged relationships and rebuild her life from the ruins she had created. Ava, from her position as a powerful blackmailer, had now become the loser in this battle. The surveillance footage she had used to threaten Alexis lost its value as public opinion shifted toward Kristina, an expectant mother trying to rebuild her life. Ava tried to counterattack by spreading rumors that Kristina had deliberately gotten pregnant to avoid prison, but these efforts only made her appear cruel for targeting a pregnant woman. Even Ava's closest allies began to distance themselves, not wanting to be associated with a public attack on a pregnant member of the Corinthos family. Julian, Ava's brother, publicly advised her to abandon her revenge plot and focus on building a relationship with her daughter Avery. But Ava, with her stubborn and vengeful nature, wouldn't give up easily. In a final effort to regain the upper hand, Ava hired a private investigator to look into the mysterious man Kristina had sought out to conceive. She hoped to use this information to discredit Kristina, proving that the pregnancy was just part of a carefully calculated plan. However, this plan backfired when the detective discovered that the man was a struggling medical student who had agreed to help Kristina because he needed money for tuition and was completely unaware of her true motives. The story of a single mother helping a talented but poor medical student created a new wave of sympathy for Kristina, making Ava even more isolated. Even Nicholas, once Ava's ally, had begun to reconsider their relationship, concerned that her blind hatred for the Corinthos family could endanger his position in Port Charles. Meanwhile, Kristina had begun a new journey of self-awareness and growth. The mandatory psychological counseling sessions, which she initially attended only to avoid prison, gradually became an important part of her healing process. Kristina had begun to face deeper issues, the pain of losing the surrogate baby, her complicated relationship with her parents, and her tendency to seek attention through self-destructive behavior. With her therapist's help, Kristina also began to better understand her gender identity. Although she had long identified as gay, seeking out a man to conceive had triggered a new identity crisis. Kristina had to face the question of whether she could be a good mother while still struggling with her own issues. Sonny, meanwhile, had found a new purpose in preparing for the birth of his grandchild. He had begun renovating a room in his mansion into a nursery, selecting furniture and toys with unusual care. Carly, though no longer Sonny's wife, remained by his side during this time, helping him choose baby clothes and sharing parenting experiences. The relationship between Kristina and Molly also began to show signs of healing. Molly, though still unable to fully forgive Kristina for nearly killing Rick, had begun visiting her sister more frequently, bringing books about pregnancy and parenting. The sisters had frank conversations about the pain Kristina felt when she lost the surrogate baby, and how Molly had failed to recognize the extent of her sister's suffering. As the due date approached, Port Charles seemed ready for a new beginning. Kristina, who had once fled in fear, was now preparing to accept the greatest responsibility of her life. Sonny, silently fighting his heart condition, had found new strength to continue living. And Ava, who once held the upper hand with the surveillance footage, had now become an outsider, watching her enemy being forgiven and accepted by society. Life in Port Charles continued with its secrets, plots, and complicated relationships. But amid all that, a new life about to be born had brought hope and opportunity for healing, not just for Kristina but for the entire once-divided Corinthos Davis family. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes to discover what unfolds in Kristina's life. Will she actually be committed to a mental institution as part of Alexis's plan to keep her out of prison? Dante's investigation into Rick's car accident is progressing, and Kristina's panic when confronting her brother might raise further suspicions. Meanwhile, Ava is doubling her blackmail demands against Alexis, pushing the situation to extreme tension. What will become of the relationship between Kristina and Molly when Molly discovers the truth that her own sister caused the accident that nearly took her father's life? Alexis is trying to make Kristina appear unstable to minimize the damage to the sisters' relationship when everything comes to light, but will this plan work? Sonny, with his deteriorating heart condition, will host a birthday party for Dante next week. Will this sweet celebration turn into a nightmare of anger when secrets begin to be revealed? And Lucky Spencer, the only person besides Kristina who knows the truth, how long will he continue to keep silent as he cares for Elizabeth, who has just been discharged from the hospital? Don't miss the upcoming intense developments as Kristina faces the consequences of her actions. Alexis makes difficult decisions to protect her daughter, and Sonny fights not only to save Kristina but also to preserve his own life. Secrets, plots, and complicated relationships continue to be revealed in the upcoming episodes of General Hospital.